Hello, hello, lovely people. It is Melissa Santana, your co-host of the Miss Texas Show again. Here, full force. But also I'm here to act. It's not your normal typical interview again. It's the second edition of Melissa's Corner. So I am super excited if you're here, tuning in because any opportunity to be able to educate and spread awareness is what I love, love, love to do. But I love it even more when I can share it with other people. So I'm super glad that you're, tuning in and being able to listen to this. And so this is, like I said, the second edition of Melissa's Corner. This time for the corner, we're going to focus on teen dating violence because I don't know if you're aware, but February, we get to celebrate a lot of things. So February 1, month of love, right? We know Valentine's Day. That's usually the most popular one, right? Because or one of the most popular, right? Because we celebrate love and all of these wonderful things. Valentine's Day, all that. Obviously, by the time you guys are all seeing this, Valentine's Day has already passed. However, I wanted to let you know that it is definitely something wonderful, wonderful to be a part of, and to be able to celebrate. But I want to shout out everybody, right? That celebrates, not just the people that are in relationships, but I also would love to shout out my fellow single people. I'm part of that crew with you, but also the people that might be, about to start a relationship, the people that are thinking about getting into a relationship, the people that might have just gotten out of a relationship, the people that don't even define themselves by a relationship, the people who might have relationships with their kids, who might not have kids, who are just really great friends, all of that, and so like to anybody, like I said, that may be grieving, to those who may be celebrating, and to those who may just be exploring, right, and just figuring it out. All of you deserve love and deserve to be celebrated, and then also deserve, to love others if you choose to do that. And so I just think, main thing is that we love ourselves first. So I think it's amazing that we have that opportunity to be able to celebrate that this month, but that in the process, we don't forget about ourselves first, right? Because in order to love other people, I think we need to start with home base. We need to check in with ourselves, make sure that we're good, and then we can spread that love to other people. The other thing is that it is Black History Month. Black History Month. I love celebrating Black History Month. Personally, professionally, I do also consider myself an Afro-Latina. I talked about that a little bit on the interview that we shared. So as a result, I definitely take pride in racially being Black and ethnicity being Puerto Rican. And so being a Black Puerto Rican essentially is what I identify myself as. And so, but also just because of the great, things that we have in our society, that we have racial boxes and then we have ethnic boxes. But at the end of the day, we definitely have Black people that exist in the world, and I definitely think they deserve to be celebrated all year round, but I think it's a little bit more loudly during the month of February, since February is Black History Month. And apart from everything that I've talked about myself, I think the main thing here is that there are a lot of Black creatives, leaders, inspirational people who have contributed tremendously to our society, really have changed the entire fabric of our society. And I also think that there's a lot of things that really could not exist without the Black contributions that have been made. And so with that being said, I'm super excited that it is Black History Month, but also even more excited that we had an amazing interview with a Black History Month champion, Edna White. If you want to know anything about Black excellence, woman excellence, and just overall excellence and how to be inspired, Edna's your girl. So Edna does a lot of great things. She's a life coach. She, speaker, author. I mean, literally does it all. Has had a career in real estate, has done all these other amazing things, and then even blessed us with an interview. And it was definitely by far one of my most favorite interviews. I really love them all, but it's just, there's certain ones that also, the energy is really high and you can just, the synergies there. The one with Edna was definitely one of those. So if you have not checked that out, we still have it. It's up on our page. Definitely check it out on the Miss Texas Show. That is something I would love for you all to tune in and see, because it's a treat. I'm telling you, I think you'll have a good time, because I did. But that is subjective, right? It'll be up to you to see how you will like it. With that being said, I want to get into teen dating. So other than all those things, so month of love, Black History Month, February is also teen dating violence awareness month as well. So that is another thing that is celebrated, that is recognized this month, and that is talked about. And so we want to also talk about it, be part of the conversation, and educate you a little bit like we did on stalking. So any of those who tuned into my first corner where we talked about stalking, thank you. Now we just want to be able to do it again. And so with that, I also have a lovely presentation like I did last time. And so, hello. Formally, Melissa Santana, your co-host. But again, for those who may be meeting me for the first time, who need a refresher on who I am, I don't like introduce myself every single time that I'm interviewing someone on the show. So I know there may have been opportunities where you knew me. There may have been some where you did not. But I will say that I am Melissa Santana. I am the co-host of the Miss Texas Show. So I am the second half of the show. The other half, of course, is our lovely Eileen Dong, who created the show. She's, the brains behind it. I just love to be able to support her with everything that she does with it. And the things that she talks about, I'm very passionate about. And so we joined forces. And so here we are with co-hosts, taking on the show together. And so the other thing though, is that by day, I am also a family support specialist. So I do love to help connect families to resources. I would love to do that for you as well. If you watch this and you're like, oh, I want to know more, I want to connect, reach out, because I would love to be able to help you, help anyone, and help you to help other people or help yourself. The other thing is that I'm a bilingual peer education coordinator. So yes, hablo español, number one. The other thing is that, so I speak Spanish in case you didn't catch that, but also I do that for Planned Parenthood, amazing organization. So if you ever wanted a little bit more on them, I currently am doing contractual work for them. So, love them, hold them dearly. And obviously, even after my time with them, I'm sure that I will continue to talk about them, as well as other organizations that exist, like the Cleveland Rape Crisis Center that I used to work at as well. All of these organizations are near and dear to my heart because they help and provide resources, again, on the topics that I'm passionate about and that I want to see get in and, put an end towards, or at least, be moving towards eradicating if we can, even if it doesn't happen in our lifetime, but that we're at least working on it, right? So that's me. And that's another little, lovely picture of myself in case you want another viewpoint. But the curls, right? Curls all day. But so, as mentioned, it is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. If you had not heard about it, bam, this is your first time. I'm happy to have brought the awareness about it. We're already doing our job then in that case. But also, if you're seeing the colors, I did specifically pick orange. Orange is usually the color that is used to talk about teen dating violence. There was actually a day this month, I'm forgetting the exact day, I want to say it was like the week of the 7th, where there was one day in particular where you actually could wear orange, but you can literally follow all of the hashtags, and there's a lot of social media. I'm going to share some information and some websites, but basically teen dating violence, if you look it up, there's a lot of pages and organizations dedicated to this, but it is absolutely, because of that, they have a month dedicated to it. And they usually use the color orange. So if you wear orange in solidarity, appreciate it, because it's definitely something great to be able to do. And so with that being said, let's talk about the prevalence. 1 in 3 teens in the United States will experience physical, sexual, or emotional abuse by someone they are in a relationship with before they become an adult. Just to be clear, I just want to make sure we're clear on what that means. So again, 1 in 3 teens, that's like why we're even having this conversation, like why are we even talking about this? 1 in 3 teens is going to experience some kind of abuse, whether that is physical, sexual, or emotional, by someone that they are in a relationship with before they even become an adult. So sometimes we also talk about not only why are we talking about this, but when should we be talking about this? Like we're talking about, I didn't even know teens, some teens were even dating, let alone like experiencing teen dating violence. And enough for you guys to dedicate a whole month to it. Like, why are we even, needing that much awareness to be spread? Well, I'm here to tell you, not only are teens dating, but yes, it does happen. And by the time they're adult, 1 in 3 teens will not only have dated someone, most of them are probably dating, or might be considering it, but 1 in 3 of them will experience some kind of abuse by the person they're dating. And that's, of course, what we do not want, right? We want dating to be a fun time, to be able to, something to enjoy, for you to be able to explore it, see what your interests are, and, enter into adulthood a little bit more clear on what kind of relationship you're looking for. We would of course, hope that no teen would have to experience, abuse and be able to just fully enjoy whatever relationship they're in. But the unfortunate truth is that 1 in 3 will experience it. So as a result, let's talk about it. That's why we feel that we should talk about it. That's why we think it's important. And that's absolutely why we're having the conversation today. And so first we got to talk about dating, right? Like let's little dating one-on-one. Dating does mean different things to different people, especially across generations. And what I'm also going to add to that is across different cultures, right? There's different rules. I can definitely say that it was a strict household for me. I was not allowed to date. It was forbidden. I will also say that for some, when it's forbidden, there's some children that will find ways to do it because it is forbidden. That's also something I talked about recently with the friend group of mine. But as a result, either way, dating does mean different things to different people, especially across generations. And like I said, different backgrounds or different cultures. Love is respect. That's one of the organizations I want to definitely share with y'all. I drew a lot of my material from them today, so shout out to them. There's also Youth Over Violence, Peace Over Violence. There's other organizations. But again, at Love is Respect, they define dating as 2 or more people in an intimate relationship. That relationship may be sexual, but it doesn't have to. That's the thing. 2 people can be in a relationship, never engage in sex, and still be in a relationship. So that doesn't, negate the sex is not a requirement for someone to be in a relationship. It could also be a serious relationship, or it could be casual, right? Maybe they just met, they're getting to know one another. It could be gay or straight, monogamous or open. Some people like to date only one person at a time, but there are some people who like to date more than one person. Up to you. It can also be short-term or long-term. We know that there can be different relationships spanning different time periods. And also we can be honest and say that maybe sometimes we thought the relationship was going to be long-term, but it may have ended up being short-term, unfortunately, because it did not work out. Those things happen. Those are still relationships. With all of this being said, we prefer to use the gender neutral term partners to refer to people in intimate relations, but you can use whatever term you like. I am going to use the word partner during the duration of this presentation, just gender neutral, just to keep it that way. You may use whatever word you choose. Just want to make sure we're clear on using that for background, just so that we can talk about what dating is, right? But again, you can use whatever you like. No matter how you define it, no matter how you look at it, no matter what you call it, it's important to make sure that you're on the same page with your partner. So, for example, if you are in a monogamous relationship and you only like to date one person, it'd be great for you to make sure that you're dating someone else who also shares that same value. There are some people who like to prefer to be in open or what is known as polygamous relationships. And they're allowed to do so, but they just need to make sure it just is helpful if you communicate that with your partner and make sure that they also know that. That way you can avoid conflicts, right, in different situations. So a little bit about dating. However, now let's get into speaking of sex, speaking of communication, and speaking of different decisions that you make. Deciding when, where, how, and why to have sex is a decision that only you should be able to make. So that is definitely entirely up to you. So again, as we mentioned, sex is absolutely not a requirement for a relationship. You can be in a relationship and never engage in sexual activity. Not a requirement whatsoever. However, if you are going to engage in sex, we want it to be because it's a decision that you made and then not a decision that somebody else made for you. So if you're considering when to have sex, these are the kind of things that we want you to keep in mind. Love is respect, especially also does that, is that you should always feel comfortable with your decision. You are not obligated to have sex if you're in a relationship, like we said. So there should be no force, coercion. You shouldn't feel manipulated into having sex. You shouldn't feel like you're forced into it. You should be able to freely make that decision, knowing that if you don't, then sex is not part of the equation, doesn't make you wrong, doesn't make your relationship any less valid. If you, however, are going to participate in sex, discuss safe sex practices with your partner. Have ongoing conversations about getting tested for STIs, considering birth control options. Have these conversations. This is definitely advice that is shared and that I definitely want to reiterate. But also be honest with yourself and your partner. It's okay if you're not ready to do something, if you've done it before, if you want to try, or if you make a decision, but then you change your mind. All of these things are okay. Usually you'll be honest with your partner, keep those communication lines open and communicate, how it is that you feel. But if something scares you or makes you uncomfortable, you can say no at any point in time. So any point in time that you, again, change your mind, feel differently, feel uncomfortable, what have you, you are allowed absolutely to change your mind, to be able to say something and be able to say no. Be able to say, no, I may have agreed to it before, don't currently want to do it now. And your partner should absolutely respect that. The other thing is you have the right to speak openly and honestly about your fears, your worries, or your feelings. If your partner tries to threaten you or pressure you into having sex, it could be a sign of an unhealthy relationship, because at all times you should be able to speak freely about what it is you want, sexually, but also in other areas as well. So whenever it is that you have an opinion about something, you're allowed to have an opinion. You were a whole person before you got in a relationship. You're going to be a whole person after you get out of that relationship you want, or even during the duration of that relationship. And so at any point in time, you should be able to freely communicate what it is that you like, what it is that you don't like, any fears that you have, any worries or any feelings about anything. So if you encounter any threats, however, any pressure throughout, then it may be a sign that something unhealthy is taking place there, or it is abusive. So that includes if someone won't take no for an answer, or they repeatedly pressure you verbally, emotionally, or physically. You deserve to be in a relationship with someone who respects you and your decisions, and who does not constantly keep trying to weigh you down. So if you've ever also heard where people say, well, the person kept asking me, and I just said yes because I didn't want to disappoint them. I didn't want them to keep asking me anything like that. Absolutely not something that you need to be doing. And it is unfortunately a sign of an unhealthy or abusive situation. That is not how you should agree to any type of decision you're making. You should be able to agree to that freely and without any kind of force. You also have control over your own body. That is not something we always hear, but we do. No one else has the right to tell you what to do with your body except you. Unfortunately, sometimes I feel like we hear conflicting messages when it comes to that in our society, but I definitely want to tell you loudly and proudly that you are actually the person that has ultimate control over your body. No one else can make decisions about it for you. So deciding when, where, how, and why to have sex is a decision you should make. So with that being said, we've talked a little bit about this thing here: healthy, unhealthy, and then abusive. We've kind of mentioned some of these words, but we haven't exactly said what it is. And when it comes to teen dating violence, like we said, I want to remind everyone, this is what we meant, right? When we said that 1 in 3 teens are going to face some kind of abuse. What is that? What kind of abuse? What is it that we look for? What is it that they might face? What exactly does it look like to be in that kind of situation? Well, let's start with healthy. If someone is in a healthy relationship, you love the lovely blue that's behind it, one of my favorite colors. The healthy relationship means both you and your partner, you communicate. Y'all talk, you actually have conversations, you respect one another, like we said, or whatever decision that person makes. You trust one another. You also are honest with one another. So again, when you're having those conversations, they're not forced conversations, but they're also honest conversations. You're not holding anything back. You're not scared to say anything. And you're equal, you're partners. So that's another reason why the word partner is actually a great one, because it talks about how you both have an equal say. Now, are things going to always be divided up equally in relationships? Absolutely not. We're humans. We get that. But it's just that you all should have an equal opportunity to be able to communicate, to be able to take part in that relationship, and to enjoy it. Speaking of which, next one, enjoying personal time away from each other. So you should be able to enjoy that relationship, but in healthy relationships, the two individuals involved in it, or if it's 2 or more, whoever's involved in that relationship should be able to enjoy personal time away from the relationship. Because again, you were a whole person before you got in a relationship, and you will be after it as well. You should also be able to make mutual decisions. So sometimes you need to be able to pick things separately, when you're having your own time, but you also might need to make decisions together. And healthy relationships should be able to do that. Economic and financial partners as well. So when it comes to finances, when it comes to buying things, when it comes to discussing money, you're able to talk about that from a partnership mindset. And so you're able to make decisions in that way. However, getting over to unhealthy. So now it's in the green. It's in the orange side. It's starting to get a little bit we got to caution, you know what I'm saying? We got to pump the brakes. we got to look out if we start to see these signs. Unhealthy. You may be in an unhealthy relationship if your partner is, one, not communicating. So opposite of healthy, right? They're not talking to you. They shut down. They don't say anything. You're not able to have conversations. If they disrespect you. So, you have boundaries, you set them, walk right over them. If they disrespect you in any way, that is absolutely a sign of an unhealthy situation. If they do not trust you and they're constantly reminding you of that, like, I don't trust you, like, I've had other things. And understandably, some people may go into a relationship having trust issues, but if they're not willing to work on it, if they don't know, if you unfortunately have done nothing to mediate that for them and they just are not trusting you, it's just going to be difficult to have a healthy relationship with that person, because a healthy relationship is based on trust. If it's also dishonest, so if lies are being spread, but also if things are being kept. So, if you do not share certain things and or you do not feel like you can, that's a sign of an unhealthy relationship. As we mentioned, you should be able to share whatever it is that's on your mind, whatever decision you're wanting to make. And so you should be able to do that honestly and openly. The other thing is if they're trying to always take control of a situation, take control of you, take control of a situation, take control in general. That is definitely a sign of an unhealthy situation or an unhealthy relationship at best. Also, if they only want to spending time together, again, like we said, healthy relationships, people spend time apart and they like it. Only spending time together means, unfortunately, that person does not have a life outside of the relationship. And so that makes it unhealthy because they hinge and everything depends on that relationship. So only spending time together, unhealthy sign. Other thing is if you're pressured into activities. So if you want to be able to do other things, but unfortunately your partner does not agree with that and is constantly pressuring you into wanting to do what they want to do or just certain things, that is a sign of an unhealthy relationship. And like we said, with the economics and with the finances, if that is not equal, that's a sign of an unhealthy relationship for sure. Now, abusive. When it goes into abusive, it's gone past unhealthy. When you see these signs, abuse is taking place. So it's not something, debatable. It can be something hard, right, to admit or to face. But with these signs, abuse is occurring in a relationship. When one or more, depending on how many people are in the relationship, when one partner is communicating in a hurtful or threatening manner, when they are mistreating that person, when they are accusing the other person of cheating, despite the fact that it is not true, they might not even have evidence for it or anything like that, but they just continue to accuse, when they deny that their actions are abusive, when they are controlling of the other person, and when they are isolating their partner from others. And so let's make sure we are clear on that. So communicating in a hurtful way. We said that unhealthy was when you're not communicating. Abusive is different because you are communicating and you're communicating in a very negative way. You're insulting the other person. You're threatening the other person. You're pressuring the other person. The communication is present. It's just not good communication that's taking place. Mistreatment could be many things. It could be physical, like you are literally abusing someone, but it also could be that you're literally taking that person's things, you're stealing from that person. Mistreatment could be many different things. And so as a result, if that's taking place, abuse is definitely present, unfortunately. Like we said, accusing another person of cheating. Unfortunately, too, what you'll find is that sometimes those who inflict abuse accuse the other person of cheating, not only when it's not true, but also because they might actually be cheating. And so in order to hide that, they might accuse the other person of cheating to get the, heat off of them. But they might be the person actually doing it. And speaking of that, denying that their actions are abusive. You bring it to their attention. Hey, I don't really like the way you're talking to me right now. I don't really like what you're doing. And they're like, I'm fine. What are you talking about? I'm not doing anything wrong. That unfortunately is a sign of abuse as well. Any type of control, like we said, whenever we see someone trying to take control or ultimately gaining control of the other person, that should not be the goal of the relationship, is to be the person in control. The goal of the relationship should be, how can we work together? Because we're in this together. And so that definitely is a sign of abuse, as well as isolating their partner from other people, meaning that that person can have friends, that person can't communicate with other people, that person needs to give all their attention to me. That is a sign of abuse. Because a person, again, should be able to live their own life and have relationships with other people outside of the relationship that they're in. whether that's a romantic, platonic, or any type of relationship. So again, this goes with, a romantic relationship, but friendships too. If you're in a friendship where this is happening, might need to reconsider, because that is definitely, those are definitely some signs. So as a result, relationships exist on a spectrum. It can sometimes be hard to tell when a behavior goes from healthy to unhealthy or even abusive. But again, some other warning signs that we want to make sure that you're thinking about, or that because when it comes to teen dating violence, the reason why, again, we have a month dedicated to it is so that we can be more aware, know that it's happening, and know how to spot it, and also know how to be able to help other people. So these signs are ones that we want you to be able to keep in mind and know about, so that you can help others. So checking someone's phone, email, or social media accounts without their permission, definitely a sign of an unhealthy or even abusive relationship. Putting the person down frequently in front, and especially in front of other people. So it's not just that you're insulting them, but you're doing it in front of others. You're completely embarrassing them. You're belittling their character. Like you're, attacking them overall. That is definitely a sign of an unhealthy situation and could borderline abusive as well. As we mentioned, isolating, and not only isolating them from friends or family, but please notice a parentheses. It can also be isolating them physically, financially, or emotionally. So sometimes people are in relations with people where, one person pays bills, and they are in charge of those kind of things. When they do not let the other person have access to the money that is supposed to be shared, then that is definitely a form of abuse as well. You should not be cutting off that access. Both partners should have access to whatever it is that they're meant to share. Of course, if it's your own money, that's completely understandable. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about money that should be shared, or money that maybe that person has earned and they put it into an account, for example, and the other partner does not let them have access to it. That is what we're talking about. Extreme jealousy or insecurity, which goes hand in hand with what we talked about with the cheating. So always constantly accusing you of cheating, telling you they don't trust you, not letting you talk to other people because your attention should only be on them, all of that. And then speaking of which, it goes right into explosive outbursts, temper, and mood swings. So let's say you did talk to someone. Let's say you got a phone that, somebody tried to give you their phone number, or let's say that you engage in some kind of conversation and the person explodes on you and, gets completely upset. That is definitely a sign of, abuse or unhealthy situation, because you should not have to be in a relationship where you're constantly recipient of that, receiving that. So you should not always have to be there where you're always walking on eggshells because that person is going to always explode. That is not how a relationship should have to go. You should be able to enjoy it. Any form of physical harm, absolutely not. And any type of possessive or controlling behavior, absolutely not. We definitely don't want that to be the case. And so with that being said, speaking of control, if you've never seen this before, super important. Power and control wheel. This happens not only in teen dating violence situations, but absolutely with adults also. So adults, this can happen in unhealthy relationships for adults as well. So these are all the ways. There's physical, as you'll see up top, there's some that are physical, there are some overall talks about violence, some that are sexual, and there's other ones that are, different in nature. You'll see using coercion and threats. So threatening you, threatening to keep stuff from you, threatening to expose you because they have personal information from you, anything like that. Definitely a sign of power and control. And that's why we say that it is a sign of abuse. Using intimidation, making you afraid of them, them always yelling at you, them destroying your property, them destroying your pets or any personal or showing weapons towards you, anything like that. Definitely is something there, or forcing you to do something you do not want to do, to engage in something that's illegal or something that you just don't want to do. Simply, that is also a sign of power and control. Now I'm over here on the emotional abuse, putting you down, making you feel bad, calling you names, and then making you think you're crazy for even feeling like this is taking place. So playing with your mind or humiliating you, definitely a sign of power and control and abuse. Again, with the isolation, not letting you talk to other people, controlling what you read, where you go, who you interact with, all of that. You should not be in a relationship. You should not have to be in a relationship like that. You do not deserve to be in a relationship like that. Minimizing or denying, and again, making light of the abuse, not taking it seriously, saying that the abuse did not happen or that you're crazy for thinking that, like we said before. Using children. So we understand that for this can be different in, you know, different cases, but even with teens, when we say using children, it could be the siblings, you know, it could be that they threaten that they might harm that person's siblings, that they can harm their family, but using children to make the person feel guilty is definitely what we're talking about. That can definitely happen both in teen dating violence situations as well as in adult ones. But using those children to also relay messages, using the visitation to harass, threatening to take the kids away, all of those things. Using male privilege, not one that you always hear about, but telling, so we, as we mentioned, we're using the word partners, and we definitely want to keep this gender neutral. But for those who are in straight relationships and or essentially in a relationship, we don't need to just use the word straight, but in a relationship where there is someone that identifies as a male and someone who identifies as a female, if that happens and there's someone in that relationship, the person who identifies as a male uses his privilege as a male and wants the woman, the person who identifies as a female, to treat him like a king and for her to be a servant, that is absolutely a sign of power and control. And so that can still happen in other ways too, right? You may not identify as a male and the other person may not identify as a female, but you still might find that power differential. We're still saying that that applies in that situation as well. Anytime that kind of privilege is trying to be exerted and the other person is trying to reign superior to that other person and be the master, that is what we're talking about. But also economic abuse, like we said, it could be that somebody is paying bills and, you know, takes control of that or prevents a person from having a job, abuses the person so much that unfortunately they're not able to keep a job, is constantly calling them while they're at work. That's things like that, not letting them have access to family income, anything like that, or giving them an allowance, which is crazy to hear, but has happened in relationships. That's a sign of power and control. It's definitely amazing too. If you have not seen the Power and Control wheel, it's awesome. But so because of that, we need to make sure we got boundaries, and those boundaries need to be based on trust. So if you're not sure whether or not you trust your partner, you should be able to ask yourself these questions. So if you're listening to all this and you're thinking, okay, yeah, some of this kind of like resonates with me, or I know someone who might be in a situation like this, these are going to be the best questions to ask to get some clarity, right? Like, to be clear. First one, is my partner supportive of me and my decisions for myself, both physically and emotionally? And on the flip side of that, am I supportive of my partner? So we can definitely think about, like, does your partner support you? But you can definitely think about, are you supportive to them? Like, are you supportive? Could you maybe use some improvement in this area? We can be honest with ourselves and think about it. Number two, is my partner consistent in their actions and behaviors? Am I consistent with them? Is my partner consistent in their actions? Because consistency is also a love language, you all. So someone showing you consistency and doing all of that. I know that some people like to also be in situations that are exciting and that are not very predictable. But what we also mean is sometimes behavior being predictable and at least behavior being reliable is nice to have. You deserve to have that kind of stability and that reliability. And so consistency is definitely a great thing to have. Does my partner demonstrate their trustworthiness by acting in accordance with what they say? So do they do what they say? Do they walk the talk? Do they, talk the talk or walk the walk? Do they tell me they love me, but treat me in unhealthy ways? So that's the thing. Somebody might say all the right things, but what they're doing does not match up with what they're saying. And so that is definitely something that is okay to ask yourself and to be able to evaluate, and to look into. And also, are you both able to comfortably spend time apart? Like we said, that time apart is key. We need to make sure that we remember we do not lose ourselves when we are in a relationship. So do you feel comfortable letting your partner know when you need space or time? So that's the thing. Do you have that time? And do you feel comfortable asking for that time? Those are the two things. Do you feel comfortable doing it? And do you feel comfortable asking for it? And the other thing is, have you just never asked because you didn't want to, or because you didn't think that that person would agree? All of these things are things that we should be considering and thinking about when it comes to this. The other thing is communication. It's not always easy, but it's something we should definitely do, especially when it has to do with physical boundaries. It's something, so we should definitely be doing it. We should be communicating our boundaries, but it's not going to always be easy to do that especially when it comes to boundaries, because we know that sometimes those boundaries are not always respected. We may not know what our boundaries are. That could be a reason why it's also difficult. But it may not be easy to have that conversation with the other person, and we may not know whether or not they're going to respect those boundaries. Some of these things that we're going to talk about may feel unnatural or awkward to you, but ultimately they can help you to improve your communication and build a healthier relationship. So number one, stop. If you are really angry about something, stop. Take a step back, breathe. Tell your partner respectfully that you like to take a short break before continuing the conversation to calm down. That's what we mean. Is that one is not going to be easy to do, right? If you're in the middle of in a heated discussion, to tell somebody to stop, that can be really difficult, correct? Like, it might not always be easy to do that. You might not even remember to do that because you fired up too. So we can understand that might be difficult. But you should definitely give yourself time by talking to a friend, taking a walk, watching TV, listening to music, doing any activity that relaxes you. It helps you to get centered. This can help you prevent a tense situation from becoming a worse situation. So stopping, although it might not feel natural, though it might not feel easy to do, is something that can definitely help. The other one is to think. Once you've calmed down, so after you've stopped, taking a step back and had a chance to breathe, you should definitely take time to think once you've calmed down. Like, consider the situation. What exactly made me so angry? Was it my partner's behavior, something they said, how they spoke? Was it something I did? Figure out what the real problem behind your anger was, and then consider how to express that to the other person and why you felt the way you did. Because again, and if you're not able to do that, if you just got upset about something and then there's not an opportunity to talk about it, again, that's a sign of an unhealthy situation, because you should be able to talk to that person about anything, but especially something that made you upset. And so with that, talk. Once you're prepared to have the conversation, talk to your partner, following the tips that we just mentioned. Love is respect, hasn't mentioned it, as well as, like I said, other organizations have great tips as well. But also listen. We love to talk. I feel like as human beings, well, some of us do, but we don't always practice the skill of listening. Listening is also a very important skill to have. After you tell your partner how you feel, you got to remember to give them a space to express themselves, and you listen to what they have to say. Because again, you're both in this, you're both partners, you both deserve the opportunity to communicate your feelings in a safe, but also healthy way. An open and honest way. Those are all ways that you should be able to communicate. And so, speaking of that, and speaking of boundaries, whatever the boundaries are for you, you have every right to share those with your partner. But especially when it comes to teen dating, we want to make sure we talk about digital boundaries. Do we even have them? Do we even know what in the world are digital boundaries? Well, let's talk about it today. Before you talk to your partner about your online relationship, check in with yourself to determine what you're comfortable with in general. So these are also some great questions to ask ourselves. Is it okay to tag you in posts or check-in places together? Do you like that? And again, this could be for romantic relationships, but what about with your friends? Do you like it when your friends tag you in posts or check-ins, or do you prefer not to have that? I actually have it set up on my social media where I need to approve those. So I don't know if people are always aware of that, but I actually go in and approve them first. And not just because I might not be comfortable. Maybe I might not like the photo. Maybe I don't want it on my page. I actually have it set up to where I review them first, and then they'll just end up on my page automatically. Do we post our relationship status publicly? Some people love that. It's not official until it's Facebook official or Instagram official or Twitter official or whatever it is. TikTok, unless we're posting on TikTok together. But either way, do you like for your relationship status to be public? It's a great question to ask yourself. Do you want that to be the case? Is it okay to follow or friend other people? Is it okay to do? Is it okay to do it of people of opposite gender? Is it okay to, befriend people of the same gender? Is it okay to follow people in general, friends, people that do not talk to your partner, just anything like that? Is it okay to follow or friend other people in your life? What are the expectations for communication through texting or social media? So when you do text, some people in relationships are great texters. They actually communicate better via texting. For other people, they're not. That is not their preference. That is not how they like to communicate. They would much rather prefer to communicate through other means. It's good to find out what is that for you and identify that and then communicate that with your other partner. Is it okay to use each other's devices? So is it okay for the other person to use your phone? Is it okay for the other person to use your tablet? Is it okay for the other person to use your TV? Whatever it is. Log into your Amazon account, log into your Netflix account, be able to see your browsing history, whatever. And if they do, when is that okay? When is it okay to do so? So is it okay for them to use your other devices? And if so, when? When are they going to be able to do that? And lastly, is it okay to post? It might not be the last, but yes, is it okay to post about our relationship publicly? So are you able to post about it? Are they able to post about it? Do you all post it? And is it okay for you to do it as a unit or for you to do it as yourself? The other thing is how to resolve arguments. So even with all this being said, even with all the communication, arguments are still going to happen. There still might be situations that take place, and there still might be some conflicts that come up. How can we resolve arguments in a healthy way? Teens especially, how can they, what are some tips for them to be able to do it? While conflict is normal, it can also bring out the parts of your relationship that are not working. So if your conflict is based on decisions like what movie to watch, who to hang out with, who should do the dishes, you can use these tips to help you resolve arguments in a healthy manner. First one, establish those boundaries. First of all, you got to figure out what those boundaries are. Like we said, not everybody knows what boundaries they have and what they look like for themselves. So it's good for you to figure out what those are, first of all, and then communicate what those boundaries are to the other person, because everyone deserves to be treated with respect, even during an argument. And if a person swears at you, calls you names, or ridicules you, you can tell them to stop. You should. If they do not, you are allowed to walk away and tell them that you do not want to continue arguing with them. There is no requirement to continue engaging in an argument. You have every right to walk away from that argument. You do not have to stay in it or remain a part of it. The other thing is find out what the real issue is. So like we said before, arguments tend to happen when one person wants something and those needs or wants are not being met. And so we got to figure out what it is. Is it that the person is not communicating with me? Is it that they are not listening to me? Is it that I haven't, expressed my needs to them? Is it possible that you or your partner are feeling insecure, or they are, being treated respectfully, aren't expressing their feelings? Learn to talk about what that real issue is so that you can avoid the constant fighting. Because the thing is, if you don't talk about it, then it's probably going to continue to be a problem. And you're going to find yourself having the same argument over and over and over. So you might want to get down to the bottom of it, figure it out, be able to move forward. The other thing is agree to disagree. If you or your partner can't resolve it, can't figure it out, figure out the best time to drop it. You don't also have to agree on everything. I mean, you get into a relationship with people that aren't the same as you. They might have different viewpoints than you, which is okay to be able to have that. So you don't have to agree on everything, but it is important to focus on what matters. If the issue is too important to drop, can't agree to disagree, it may be a sign, excuse me, that you are not compatible. And I am a human being. So clearly I had a sneeze coming that I was not able to eliminate. So thank you for bearing with me with that. Anybody that said bless you over the airways, I appreciate it. And I received that. And so with all of that being said, the other thing is, in order to resolve arguments in a healthy way, you also want to make sure that you compromise. Compromise whenever you can, whenever it's possible. Compromise is a major part of conflict resolution. And like we said, we're not going to always agree on everything. So finding that middle ground, that place where you can meet in the middle, is just amazing. And it's a wonderful place to be in any successful relationship. But it can be hard to actually achieve that, figure out what that is. But it could be taking turns when making decisions about things, like what you want to eat for dinner, or finding a middle ground that allows you both to feel satisfied with the outcome. Either way, whatever that compromise is, finding it, super, super helpful. But consider everything, consider it all. If the issue you're arguing about changes how you feel about each other or forces you to compromise your beliefs or morals, it's important that you stress your position. If not, consider your partner's views on the issue, why they're upset, and if the compromise is appropriate. But if not, try to contextualize your arguments to give each other room. Either way, Gotta look at all sides of it. What exactly is causing me to be upset? What's causing the other person to be upset? How in the world can we get over this? Usually people don't like to argue. There might be some people out there who do. However, most of us want to get to a solution at some point, because even if you are a person that likes to argue, which, you know, you might be the minority there, the point is we can't have arguments continue on forever. There needs to be an end at some point. So these are some ways that you can be able to get there, because either way, while conflict is normal, once again, it can bring out the parts of relationship that aren't working. And if your conflict is based on decisions, you can use these tips to help you resolve it. The other thing is when it comes to helping. So we have talked a little bit about what exactly is dating. Where does dating go from being healthy to unhealthy and abusive? How is it that teens and others find themselves to be in violent situations? But also, how can they get out of that situation? We've definitely talked about some tips that are helpful for people who find themselves to be in relationships. But the other thing we want to mention is safety plans. So a lot of the things that we mentioned, some of it has to do with domestic violence. So like we mentioned specifically physical violence. We mentioned domestic violence also has to do with the other things that we mentioned, like the threats and things like that. So for teens who find themselves in violent relationships, they may be experiencing a mixture of different types of violence. So some of it could be sexual in nature, some of it could be physical in nature, some of it could be mental. It could span across. And so one thing that is very helpful for individuals who find themselves in that situation is to create what is called a safety plan. That is a personalized, practical plan that helps improve your safety while you're experiencing abuse. It prepares you to leave an abusive situation, or it also helps you after you leave. So it helps you in advance when you're preparing to get out of it, but also after you leave it, because it includes vital information tailored to your unique situation and will help you prepare for and respond to different scenarios, including telling your friends, your family, coping with emotions, all that. So the thing is that with the safety plan, for example, let's say that a person is in a domestically violent or any type of violent relationship, or really any type of abusive relationship. If they find themselves to be in that and they're trying to get out of it, they're going to need to figure out, one, when am I leaving? Honestly, right? So first it might be, when can I? Like, when would be a good time for me to literally physically leave? Because let's say, for example, you live together. You might have to figure out, when is it going to be a good time for you to leave? What items are you going to take with you when you leave? Who is it that you're going to call once you do leave? You know, where is it that you're going to go? So all of that is going to look different for different individuals. And so that is why a safety plan is great, but it's going to look different for different people. And so you crafting that can help you, but also you can help others, right? As they might need to craft that for themselves, but figuring that out is critical. Some of the preparations for a safety plan might seem obvious or, you know, in that way, but it can actually be hard to think clearly or make logical decisions during moments of crisis. Having a safety plan laid out in advance can help protect yourself and others in high stress situations. So at least knowing that it's there can absolutely help someone not only to, you know how to exit, like I said, in unhealthy relationships, but if you're the person helping them, it helps you to feel better knowing that they have a plan in place of how to get out of that abusive situation. If you want to learn more about them, the National Domestic Violence Hotline is amazing. But again, also loveisrespect.org, amazing organization. So if you want to help others, not only safety plan, we mentioned that there's a place for you there, but there's other things you can do too. Look for the warning signs. We talked a lot about them. We talked a lot today about like what they are, what they look like, how they kind of manifest themselves. You can look for those too. So like, and especially if somebody is seeking help from you, right? And they're asking you, some of the questions that we asked ourselves today, we could ask them. We could ask them. We could go through it with them. We could say, you know what? Let's look at this. Let's look at some of this stuff together and let's figure it out. Or you can do it on your own, either one. But meet people where they're at. So the very frustrating thing about knowing someone who's in a abusive situation is that person might not be ready to leave, that abusive situation. That's one of the main things that can be very frustrating. And that is true of, again, adult relationships, but especially teen dating, violent relationship. That person may be very attached to that other person. So even though they're abusive, they still may love them. They still may want to stay. So you have to meet people where they're at. You can't find yourself forcing them either. So just like being in a relationship where somebody is being forced to do something that's abusive, the thing is, I know you may not want to feel like you're inflicting any type of abuse, but you don't also want to add to anybody's trauma. And so you forcing them to get help is something that not only shouldn't be done, but it's also something that won't necessarily prove to be helpful if the person is not ready to do it. So if they don't want to, and you try to force them to do something that they're not ready to do, that unfortunately may actually take you a couple steps backward, and it may send that person either back to them or just back a couple steps in progress to where they were when they were trying to heal from the situation. So either one, we just got to meet people where they're at, meet them where they are. And as a result, be patient. Be patient with the process, be patient with them, be patient with the outcome, because these things take time. They did take time, and there is no prescribed time. Like, oh, it's going to take you this time to get out of this relationship. It's going to take you this amount of time to get over the relationship. And it's going to take you this amount of time to get in a new relationship. That's not how they work. Life does not work like that. We're not able to schedule these things. So got to be patient. The other thing is to seek help from others. If you find yourself wanting to help someone else, please know that you do not have to do that alone, and you can get help also. So you don't have to take it all on by yourself, especially if it's something very dangerous, if it's something very unsettling, if it's scary, because these things can be scary. You don't have to do it alone. You do not have to do it alone. There are people that are always willing to help you. This phone number is actually the number for the organization that I mentioned, Love is Respect. They have a number you can call, a hotline. They also have a chat. There are many organizations. You may also find that there are local organizations who also have these, again, hotlines as well as chat lines. So whichever one you prefer, whether it's you want to talk to somebody live or you do prefer the text messages, either one. The other one is that speaking chat is actually online using a computer, though, to be clear. If you prefer texting through a phone, you can do that by texting the word love is to the number 22522. So if you want to use that for yourself, if you want to pass that research on to other people, period, I want you to be able to know that these resources exist nationally, but again, also locally. There may be a local organization in your area that you can look into. And even if you just want insight on that, I would love to help you no matter where you are. But so with that being said, Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Let's talk about it. Let's have that conversation about it. I'm just glad that now you know about it. So, hopefully in the future, you can have more conversations with others about it. Why? Because everyone deserves to be in a healthy relationship, no matter your age, no matter your background, no matter your beliefs, no matter your ethnicity. It doesn't matter. Everyone walking this earth deserves to be in a healthy relationship. Honestly, anybody that has life deserves to be in a healthy relationship. And so if they're not, let's talk about it. Let's see how we can help. Let's see how we can also be resources. And so thank you so much for tuning in. If you got to this part, that means you rock with me the whole way. So I appreciate that. And so thank you. If you have any further questions, you can find me on Instagram as Santana Says, kind of like Simon Says. I liked it, so took it. My last name being Santana. So Santana Says with an underscore at the bottom, because I wasn't the original person to get that username. So there is an underscore at the bottom. But Santana Says, that is where you can find me on Instagram. I do find myself on other platforms as well. That's just the one that I tend to use most often. But you can also find the show itself, Miss Texas Official. You can also find the show, the overall show on Instagram. You can also find us on Facebook. You can also find us all over. And of course here, hopefully you're tuning in, means that you at least know where to find us on YouTube. And so with that, I thank you. I encourage you to reach out. Like I said, just for any reason, if you're thinking like, okay, yeah, I want to have a conversation about that with you or with someone else, or you want me to help connect you to someone else. Again, I'm a connector. I would love to make that connection. I would love to be a resource personally, if that's helpful to you. If you also just want a clarification, or if, anything about it, if you want to have a conversation, open to having that conversation with you. So please know that you can have that conversation with me. And so with that, once again, thank you. And thank you for always supporting, for always being here, and, continue celebrating love, continue celebrating yourself, take part in Black History Month, support some Black-owned businesses if you can, but also teen. If there's any teen in your life, maybe you should, show them a little extra love this month and throughout the year. Check in with them, check in with others. And like I said, don't forget to also check in with yourself. Make sure that you are being a resource to yourself before you help other people. Thank you.